that the 6 oldest Siders children were once enrolled in school in Gallia County. We verified that because long before Gary and Elizabeth Siders were charged with child endangering, the Gallia County School District filed truancy complaints against Gary Siders Jr. and Elizabeth in October 2021, stating that their 6 oldest children had not been to school at all that school year. The school district considered them habitually truant, and the children were in danger of being labeled unruly children, meaning they were disobedient or didn't.
In October 2021, the Gallia County Juvenile Court filed 6 complaints against Gary Siders Jr. and Elizabeth Siders for failing to send their children to school. The court also filed truancy complaints against the 6 children themselves, aged 7 to 13 at the time. The children should have been attending Adaville Elementary School in the Gallia County Local School District. According to court documents, the children had been absent from school without legitimate excuse for the entire 2021-2022 academic year to present, not one day. 6 children.
But they didn't attend one day of school. Not one. But a year earlier, the children were enrolled in online school.
An entire school year, and the courts could not find them. The family could not be located. The truancy cases were closed in January 2022 because court records stated the family could not be served. Picture a house, a 12 by 12 foot room, 16 children aged 18 months to 18 years crammed into that space. Some could barely speak. Officials said they looked like almost feral animals. The sheriff said livestock lived better. And the system that was supposed to find them, supposed to protect them, supposed to educate them, that system was handed a paper trail in 2021 and closed the file when the family simply could not be found. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Endless Cryme, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. This is not a story about a family that vanished into thin air. This is a story about a family that used the law itself as a shield. In 2020, Elizabeth Siders enrolled 6 of her children in the Gallia County Local School District's online school, the Southern Ohio Digital Academy.
It was 6. For that 2020-2021 school year, the 6 Siders children were enrolled in Gallia County's online school. Yes, you heard me right. They were enrolled in online school. I've confirmed the children were enrolled in the district's
Whether they actually took part in classes, took tests, or received grades, we don't know. The district isn't releasing that information, but the enrollment itself created a record. It created the appearance of compliance. It bought time. By the 2021-22 school year, the children never showed up. Not to online school, not to anything. The school district considered them habitually truant. Under Ohio law, a student is habitually truant if they miss 30 consecutive hours, 42 hours in a month, or 72 hours for the school year. The Siders children had missed 72 hours, roughly 12 school days, and failed to make progress on an absence intervention plan. The school filed complaints. The court issued them. And then nothing. The family could not be located. They had simply moved from Gallia County to Vinton County, from one jurisdiction to another, from one set of records to none. They were hiding in plain sight. The Ohio Attorney General later said the adults were hiding these kids because they knew the children were being neglected and would be taken away. The family also avoided creating medical or legal records so there wouldn't be a paper trail. They didn't register births consistently. They didn't take the children to doctors. They didn't enroll them in school. They simply existed, off-grid, in a rural home so secluded that no one noticed 16 children living in a 12 by 12 foot room covered in filth. The house on Honeysuckle in Cheshire, Ohio.
I've told you about the house before. A woman who works nearby told us the house was so trashed after the Siders moved out that the owner had to renovate the place. She said there was human and pet feces and urine in the house and trash. It was a mess. A neighbor across the street had told us that the kids mostly stayed in the house, but he had seen them playing outside. And at that time, he thought there were 9 children. So how much schooling was actually taking place?
Where the family lived before moving to Hamden was so trashed after the Siders moved out that the owner had to renovate the place. A woman who worked nearby said there was human and pet feces and urine in the house, and trash. A neighbor across the street said the kids mostly stayed inside, but he had seen them playing outside. At that time, he thought there were 9 children. He was off by 7. How does a system designed to protect children fail so completely? The answer lies in a piece of legislation.
Okay, so to discuss this whole issue of online schooling and homeschooling, I want to bring in Philip Kuhn. He is the superintendent of the Gallia County Local School District out there in Gallia County, Ohio. This is where the Siders children were enrolled in.
That passed in Ohio in 2023, House Bill 33. It went into effect on October 3rd, 2023. Before that, parents who wanted to homeschool their children had to submit a curriculum for reading, math, social studies, science, and other subjects. A licensed teacher had to sign off on the completion of that curriculum at the end of the year, or the child had to take a state assessment. There was accountability. There was a paper trail. There was a way to know if education was actually happening. House Bill 33 changed all of that.
I think in today's world, it's a good option to have, especially I think given the ease of just going to homeschooling per se. So families can decide, just to go to homeschooling and have no connection to a school district. And I think that for some of those families that are considering that, the online schooling might be at least some way that we can kind of bridge that gap and stay connected with families. Online schooling, I think all educators would say, is not the best way to educate kids. We want, our teachers do the best they can with that format. However, being in person with an educator throughout the day, we would always think that that's the best way to receive instruction.
Philip, what are the requirements for online school? I mean, you just log on? Do you chat with a teacher on there? I mean, what happens?
Yeah, our online school has 30 hours of required instruction. So we do have an online platform with the various subjects that students will work through modules, and it's more for our middle school and high school students. And so they log on during the week and work through those modules. And we do have teachers available for Google Meets to talk and discuss the instruction. And then certainly if a student has an IEP and we need to meet those needs for an IEP, there are already meetings set up so that they can meet with the teacher and talk through, the interventions that are necessary to help that child to get on grade level. So it's very similar to a regular, the requirements are similar to a regular school day. However, I would always say that, being in person in a classroom is always the best way to learn. That way you're getting that, feedback in real time. Many people that are online don't take the time to, or don't take the opportunity to ask questions. And so if when you're in a classroom, you're learning to work in teams, work in groups, and certainly you're getting more feedback from our instructors. So I would always say that, being in the classroom and in our buildings is the best way to receive instruction. I would say that also that, we learned a lot through COVID. Online learning is not the best platform. However, some families,
the state no longer requires parents to provide annual student assessment. It removed instructor education requirements. It removed requirements for a minimum number of hours of instruction. It removed requirements for parents to maintain records. Now, parents can simply submit a form saying they're choosing to homeschool, and there is no accountability past that. As one superintendent put it,
and they say, "Oh my God, it's amazing! You give the kids more attention, more individualized." A more individualized, personalized experience. However, you're not getting the structure of a classroom. You're not getting the socialization.
I'm sure there are some families that do homeschooling really well. I know I go to church with several families that choose to homeschool and do that for religious reasons and have great kids and bright kids. I think it just depends on the family and whether their family structure can provide the right atmosphere for that. I think, like you said, the structure of being in school is, having to be at a certain place at a certain time, having to get up in the morning like we would do as adults to arrive at work. That's always beneficial. So it's the structure, I think, of being in person that is beneficial. And then I would say, generally speaking, there are many people who struggle with providing the instruction for homeschooling. And I think that we see that whenever we have kids that maybe have been homeschooled for a while and then come back to school, because when we do standardized testing, many times they're well below grade level. And so I think the consistency of the instruction of being in person is beneficial. The structure of being in person is beneficial. And then that checks and balances too, I think, of just being cared for and having basic healthcare needs or, meals being met. When you come to school, you're going to be provided with lunch. And we have, caring adults here that are going to be watching out and trying to support you as a whole child, whether it be medical needs or what have you. So I think that there are some real concerns with homeschooling, especially in Ohio, since it's changed.
It's like the wild, wild west. You can basically decide your child has graduated and issue them a diploma from the Smith Family School of Homeschooling. No one can verify what has been accomplished. No one can verify if anything has been accomplished at all. The system didn't just fail these children. The system was redesigned to fail them. The moral refrain of this case, the phrase that must be repeated until it is understood, is this: they were never seen. They were never seen by teachers.
It's the concern that teachers and school superintendents such as yourself, school staff, are mandatory reporters when it comes to potential abuse and neglect.
Correct.
Oftentimes, when kids come from backgrounds where they don't have a lot or they're in need, sometimes kids, the only meal they get is at school. It's sad, but it's true. And I know, like, at my son's school around the holidays, they talk about, the kids that need it. They send home like meal packs and stuff like that. So the kids still have food. And oftentimes these schools, teachers, school staff are the first ones to spot signs of neglect and abuse. So with regard to homeschooling, talk to me about the concern with that.
Well, like I was saying earlier, I think that, school districts, especially in rural areas such as ours, provide so much more than just an education. It is kind of that well check and making sure that kids have what they need. It's Christmas gifts at Christmas time. It's backpacks of food that go home with kids over a long weekend. It's dental care, that is provided sometimes within districts and provided within ours. Mm-hmm. So that it's really a whole child approach, I think, when kids are in our buildings, and that we can really monitor their needs and help support families, really. We're not here to go against parents or anything. We're here to support parents and provide where there are gaps in maybe their care. And that, I guess that would be another thing too, is just we have after school programs that we have within our buildings that help families, those working families, to have someone at home, to watch over their children when they're at work. So a lot of things I think that public education provide that's really necessary to raising a child. It's that whole, it takes a village to raise a child.
They were never seen by doctors. They were never seen by social workers.
They're just, you have no clue what could be going on with these kids.
When they're homeschooled, correct. Now, when they're still on our what I'll call on our books, they're still connected with us and not unenrolled. We are still doing what we need to do to make contact with families, have diversionary hearings for attendance, involving law enforcement or the courts, juvenile court. But once they decide to go to homeschooling, we don't have a lot of teeth at that point. We don't have, they're outside of our reach.
They were never seen, and when the truancy complaints were filed in October 2021, the court couldn't serve them because the family had vanished. But they hadn't vanished. They had simply moved. From Gallia County to Vinton County, from one school district to another, from one set of mandatory reporters to none. The family had 10 children by the time the complaints were filed. 6 of them were supposed to be in school. None of them were. And the system, bound by jurisdictional lines and bureaucratic inertia, simply closed the file. They were never seen. On June 30, 2026, police executed a search warrant on a property in Hamden, Ohio, for an unrelated matter. They didn't know there would be children inside. What they found was 16 children, ranging in age from 18 months to 18 years, living in a 12 by 12-foot room covered in filth, some barely able to speak. 2 had to be airlifted to trauma centers. At least 1 had to be intubated. The children had never been to school. Some could not speak at all. The Ohio Attorney General described them as looking like almost feral animals. The sheriff said livestock lived better for arrested Elizabeth Siders, 33, her husband Gary Siders Jr., 36, his father Gary Siders, 73, and his mother Christina Siders, 66. Each was charged with 16 counts of second-degree felony child endangerment. Each has pleaded not guilty. Gary Siders Stir was released on a recognizance bond because the county couldn't afford to hold him. He now wears a GPS tracker. Gary Siders Jr. was granted a gag order, barring anyone involved in the case from commenting publicly. Christina Siders' attorney has requested a gag order as well. Elizabeth Siders has filed a motion requesting a mental health evaluation to determine whether she is competent to stand trial, and if she is found competent, whether she can pursue a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Her attorney argues significant mental health issues could affect both her ability to stand trial and her ability to understand the wrongfulness of her conduct. Elizabeth Siders herself was married at 15. She withdrew from school in 2008 at 15 to take part in homeschooling. The same year she was married and gave birth to her first child. The cycle of isolation, of hiding, of being unseen. It didn't start with the children. It started with her.
Records show that Elizabeth Siders attended Gallia County local schools when she was younger, but she withdrew in 2008 when she was 15 to take part in homeschooling. That was the same year she was married and gave birth to her first child. There's no record of Gary Siders Jr. attending the schools. Gary Jr., Elizabeth, and Christina Siders remain in the Southeast Ohio Regional Jail, charged with child endangering. They've all pleaded not guilty. Gary Sr. is in an undisclosed location, free on bond. Attorneys for all four Siders family members have raised issues about their competency.
The ticking clock in this case is not measured in hours or days. It is measured in legislative sessions. In October 2021, the truancy complaints were filed. The family could not be found. In October 2023, House Bill 33 went into effect, removing the very accountability measures that might have forced someone to look. For nearly 3 years, 16 children existed in a 12 by 12-foot room, unseen, unheard, uneducated, unloved. And the system that was supposed to protect them had been systematically stripped of the tools to do so. How many more children are out there right now, in homes just like this one, hidden behind a piece of paper that says homeschooled and nothing more? They were never seen. They were never seen by teachers. They were never seen by doctors. They were never seen by social workers. They were never seen. The Ohio Department of Children and Youth.
Kids are not. I'm hoping that for the kids' sake, whether, in homeschooling, I agree with you, can be done right. But I'm hoping maybe that number goes down a little bit for you guys this school year.
We'd love to see that because we want kids to be here. We feel like we're the best, place to get an education. And, our scores have been indicating that over the last several years. We're having some of our highest achievement that we've had in many years. And so we know this is a place that they can grow and become good readers and be able to do math at a proficient level, which is key. And so, we've improved in that area, and we know that we can provide great instruction. And again, like you said, they may be able to do that within their families in that home in some cases, but the percentages of that are very low in my estimation.
Mm-hmm. Is now reviewing Child Welfare Agency records for reports involving the Siders family. Ohio approved $1 million in emergency foster care funding. Legislators are demanding answers. But the gag orders have shut down the public accountability conversation at the exact moment it needed to happen. The officials who found those children are now the ones ordered to be quiet. The systems that never went looking have not been asked to say a word. The defense attorneys are already spinning the narrative. Elizabeth Siders' attorney says this is very clearly a case where my client and the Siders family were living in extreme poverty. Sometimes when you're living in a case like that, you're living in a home, and that's what you've known for years and years, you don't necessarily see how bad things have gotten. Gary Siders Sir's attorney says the case may not even be criminal in nature. The children, they say, were not feral. The children, they say, could speak. The children, they say, had social media pages. But the children were found in a 12 by 12-foot room covered in filth, some unable to speak at all. 2 were airlifted to trauma centers. At least 1 had to be intubated. The gap between what was officially said and what actually happened. That is the irony that defines this case. The system said the children were educated. They were not. The system said the children were safe. They were not. The system said the parents were complying with the law. They were not. And when the system finally tried to intervene, it couldn't find them. Not because they were hiding in a bunker. Not because they were living off the grid in the wilderness. They were living in a house, in a county, with neighbors, with a school district, with a paper trail that led nowhere because no one followed it. This is not a case about whether the Siders children were neglected. They were. This is a case about whether the system that was supposed to protect them was so thoroughly dismantled that it could not see what was right in front of it. It is a case about whether a piece of legislation, House Bill 33, created the conditions for 16 children to disappear from the world for years without anyone noticing. It is a case about whether the freedom to homeschool without accountability is really freedom at all, or just permission to hide. They were never seen. Now, the question you must answer is this. Go to the public court records from Vinton County Common Pleas Court. Find the truancy complaints filed by the Gallia County Local School District on October 19, 2021. Read the names, read the ages, read the words. Absent from school without legitimate excuse for the entire 2021-2022 academic year to present. And ask yourself this one question in the comments. If a court files 6 complaints against parents for failing to send their children to school, and the family cannot be found, not because they fled the state, not because they changed their names, but simply because they moved to the next county over, what does that say about a system that claims to protect children? This is endless crime. We don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. If this analysis brought you closer to the truth like this video, share it with someone who needs to understand what happened here, subscribe to Endless Crime, and turn on notifications so you never miss another investigation. The evidence is waiting. The question is whether we are willing to see it.